Guardians were division champs once again in 2025, but we know there's a lot of room for improvement on this roster. But for those improvements to come externally, the Guardians are going to have to get creative.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on into a Tuesday, October 7th, 2025 edition of Locked On Guardians, your only daily Cleveland Guardians podcast covering your Cleveland Guardians, the majors, the minors, the draft, and everything in between. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team, your Cleveland Guardians every day. And we're forging ahead to the offseason. We're looking at the roster as it stands now as we head into the offseason. I'm Justin Lada, one of your two co-hosts for the last 3 years now. And I've spent 18 years covering the Guardians minor league system, evaluating all of their prospects.
And I'm Jeff Ellis, your other co-host here. One of the first people Locked On brought in to talk about baseball back in the May 1600 episodes ago. Before that, I was a national writer at Scout and 24/7, focused on prospects in the draft. I want to thank you for making today's episode your first listen today and every day, wherever it is you get podcasts. And a big shout out to all of our everydayers out there. There's so many kind words in the comments for the end of the season. We appreciate all of you, especially to right now, more than ever, all you diehards sticking with us, even though the games are done. Oh, we have so much to talk about. Like it's never ending. There is always things to discuss. And today is a big one.
It is. Yeah. We're going to do a little roster deconstruction. We'll talk about how much roster flexibility the Guardians will have heading into the offseason and where additions could come from. We'll talk about who's on the bubble to come back in 2026. And we'll talk about who we think has earned a spot. Did the Guardians have anybody who stepped up and guaranteed themselves a spot outside of the obvious roster guys? Before we get into it, today's episode, Locked On Guardians, of course, brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create your account, use code LOCKEDONMLB. You're going to get $20 off your first purchase. That's good for more than just baseball games. That's good for all kinds of events. All right, Jeff, when people are buying their tickets in 2026 to Cleveland Guardians baseball, who the heck is going to be on the roster? Because to me, it looks like a lot like the 2025 roster, minus a few key guys. I think it's pretty obvious who's going to be back, right? We know we've got Tanner Bybee, we've got Gavin Williams, you've got Jose Ramirez, Kyle Manzardo. Outside of that, like I'm kind of thinking, like, okay, Kate Smith, right? Who has earned a roster spot for next year that you have to say, okay, this guy has to be on the roster. You can't make an external addition, or at least have to give this guy at bats or innings next year.
So, I mean, I'm looking at it from the 40-man, not so much 25-man, because 25-man at this point is just, it's too smoky to really look at. That's so far away with everything that can happen. So I look at when I look at the 40-man, I made a list. I put it all out there. These are the guys. I'm going to list them out right now. If anyone jumps out that you want to debate, Logan Allen, he did enough this year. Tanner, they're paying him. Cantillo, breakout. Saccone was more than they could ask. Nick Enright, we're going to talk about his induced vertical break at some point this offseason. I think he's staying no matter what. Espino, enough said. Matt Festa did it
today in Arizona.
Matt Festa did enough this year. Hunter Gaddis was one of the rocks. Tim Herron, you can never have enough lefties who can stay healthy. Parker Messick, he did enough. Sabrowski was one of the guys that counted on. Kate Smith is their closer. Andrew Walters, they'll have to add to the 40-man. He's currently not on, but he's one of their most interesting relief arms. He'll be there. Gavin Williams, maybe the breakout star for this team this year. Bo Naylor, they just don't have catchers. And he showed some life. Gabby Arias, the defense is there. Figure out the rest maybe later. Juan Brito didn't get a chance to prove himself, but there's a reason why they added him years and years ago. David Fry, we missed him in the postseason. CJ Cavis, another guy who really broke out this year. Manzardo, in his first full season, nearly 30 home runs. Enough said. Jose Ramirez, enough said. Brian Rocchio, 94 WRC plus. For those who don't know what that means, I keep using this. It's 100 his league average. It means in the second half, he was almost a league average hitter with stellar defense. You know what that is? That is a starter on every team in baseball up the middle. Chase DeLauder, they just added one of the biggest prospects on this team. And Steven Kwan, I just started a pitcher and went through their 40-man roster. Don't view this as any type of listing of doubt or anything else. He's more valuable to them than he would be as a trade asset with his, I think he's one of the safest guys on this roster. Everyone talks about trades. He's been good every other year. He's had some ups and downs. No one's going to trade enough for him to make it worthwhile to move on. Let's just be honest about that. I don't see that happening. Now, I know I said that about Josh Naylor last year, but that was a case when he was entering free agency. I just don't see it happening with Kwan. I think Kwan is very safe.
Well, they also got offers they liked for Josh Dale. There was more value out there. He was coming off a really good season for Cleveland. He had come off 2 good seasons for them, actually. He's got more power in the middle lineup. And there was also a need, too, in Arizona to replace Christian Walker. Everybody could always use a player like Steven Kwan. Like, even with his struggles this year, I think everybody could use a player like that. But, yeah, if the Guardians didn't like offers they were getting in July for Kwan, then I don't see how they're going to like the offers they're going to get in the offseason, because the value has certainly gone down, and the defense is still there for him, right? He still had a pretty good year defensively. The arm is still really good. Nobody plays the ball off the left field wall in Cleveland like him. Unless you look at him and you say, he's not getting paid like Andres Jimenez was getting paid, right? Last offseason, we were talking this off air before we started recording, that last offseason we did the expansion draft experiment, and you convinced me that it wasn't worth it to protect Andres Jimenez. This is before they traded him. This is like November, December.
Yes, because the contract was underwater.
Yeah, you convinced me that not to protect him in the expansion draft because the contract was bad. And they found a trade. We didn't think they'd be able to trade him, but they found a home for him. Unless you were to view Steven Kwan, his ARB number, which we'll talk about in the second segment, unless you were to view that as not worth it, that's the only way you would trade him. And I don't think he makes enough to sit there and say he's not worth it. And again, I'm going to go along with this. I still think Steven Kwan's a guy you just let ride out his club control, and you part with, say thanks for your service, and good luck elsewhere, because I just think that's where his career trajectory goes. So yeah, bringing him back makes a ton of sense. I can't disagree with anybody you said, because there's no injured list in the offseason, but when you go into spring training next year, you probably are keeping Andrew Walters on a 60 early on. You're probably keeping
Enright.
Enright's going to go on in the 60s. So those are 2 guys. Yeah, obviously bring back Logan Allen, because he was very serviceable this year, and he also could be a trade asset. And
100%.
If we're going to look into arbitration numbers, like what is Matt Festa getting this offseason? He's getting
1.2.
He's projected just $1 million. He's projected for $1 million. That's Fry. Fry's projected at 1.2. Matt Festa at $1 million is a very reasonable bargain. So I'm bringing Matt Festa back for sure, hoping that he doesn't have to have the same reliance that he had in 2025 and 2026, which would be great, because you have a guy like possibly Sam Hedges coming back, who we'll talk about in the next segment. So, yeah, I think the guys who are coming back, the only thing I would sit there and say is that if you're looking at kind of the roster spots that...
And I should have Valera in there. That's an oversight. He should be.
Valera.
He should be in the must. So I must. Because I also have likely, maybe, no, and gone for those, just to know what's coming up. But I had him in likely just because of the number of outfielders. But he should be in the must. That was just me not thinking fully.
Yeah, you didn't mention your final category, which I can't wait for everybody to hear.
I can't mention the final category on air.
We'll talk about it in the next segment. We will. Yeah. I mean, you bring everybody back, because I don't know what's going to happen up the middle infield. Like, obviously, you want guys like Travis Bassano to kick down the door and a Juan Brito, but both those guys are kind of stone hands at second, and
they value second base defense a lot.
They do. That's a conversation for sure to have later this offseason. Yeah. But so you bring those guys back for now, and you see what happens. David Fry has to be back, because that's a guy you are hoping you get 2024 David Fry back in some form. Like, I don't think David Fry is full Brian LaHair. Like, I think he's better than that. I don't know if you'll get 2024 David Fry back, but I don't think he's Brian LaHair either. But you got, I think going into 2026, you have to have spots open for. Do you have spots open for both DeLauder and Valera? Like, do those guys have to be your, at the very least, strong side platoon outfielders going into 2026?
Yeah, that's going to be the debate, is how you figure that out, who goes where. That's, I think they're both in there. Like I said, we haven't gotten really to the sticky part of this, but that's going to be fun. We got arbitration. We got the arbitration elements. We got the sticky parts, and all this is in preparation, because for the first time in a while, there's a big group of 40-man guys that are really exciting that this team needs to add.
Yeah, there's so much to talk about. We can't even get into the 40-man today. That'll be later this week. We'll talk about who's on the bubble, and we'll talk about Jeff's favorite category he's got written down for roster spots on the rest of today's Locked On Guardians.
But first, most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. When you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there is Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you're putting off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. It does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data visuals, get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. I have too many streaming services. I already know I'm going to get rid of Peacock. I don't use that one enough. Got to keep Paramount for the Paw Patrol. Got to keep the Netflix for the Unicorn Academy. I got to keep, various things for me. I swear it's not all for the kids, but that's where this is going to help. It's going to let me see all those things so I see exactly what I'm spending on. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB.
As always, thank you to everybody who makes Locked On Guardians your first listen. We love being part of your daily routine, especially in the off season, because there is so much to talk about. And if you are someone who is maybe not listening every day, it's the off season, you've transitioned to other things, and baseball, especially if you're hurt by the end of the season, hit the bell on YouTube or auto download on audio so you can always access those episodes at some point if you're catching up at some point. And that helps the show out a ton and keeps you up to date on everything going on. And, hey, if you like, leave a review wherever you listen to podcasts too. That always helps us out as well. So thank you for that. Shout out to the insider. I should note this for the insiders. Thinking Wednesday for our next Google Meet chat. So shoot me a text over on joinsubtext.com/LockedOnGuardians if you'd like to be a part of that on Wednesday and be an insider. Because we're doing it that night because my wife has conferences. So I have a lot of free time on Wednesday, and I'd love to talk some ball. Right now, though, we're talking about who's on the bubble. So this is a little more of an interesting conversation from who is obviously coming back. And I think there's a lot of guys who, I don't know, I'm looking at your list right now, Jeff, and the first guy you have is Franco Aleman. And I think it's likely for sure, but man, that guy is starting to dwindle on his chances. I think that depending on how the offseason unfolds, as far as they need relief depth, everyone needs relief depth. So he's a hard arm to get away from or get rid of. But I don't know. That's a guy where I could see him being moved in favor of something else. Maybe you trade him to clear a spot for somebody or something. Because I don't know. Like, the guy is just as not capitalized on his opportunities.
Agreed. I talked about trading him at multiple points during the season, so I don't have much to add.
What was that trade? Not to sidetrack us, but you mentioned a trade, and I was like, "Oh, you can't trade Franco Aleman for that. He's too valuable." And then now I'm like, "Yeah, I would have made that trade."
Was it part of a Jesus Sanchez trade? It was, something like that.
I think it might have been. And now that I think about it, I'm like, yeah, I would rather have Jesus Sanchez than Franco Aleman.
Yeah,
he's very closely entering Carlos Vargas territory, is he not?
Yeah, but that's mostly because I was never as high on both those guys as maybe the consensus. So it'd be a little unfair for me to be like, yeah, because it's like, well, that's just how
you already there.
I was a little lower. The next guy I almost put on the must, and that's Angel Martinez. I think we saw that he is just a platoon guy this year. He's going to be an incredibly streaky player, but he's a platoon guy. How many platoon guys can he carry? They've got a lot of guys like Martinez, and the other guy who's also on my likely, which is Daniel Schneemann. I know one's right-handed, one's left-handed. Together, they combine to make a player. You're hoping, but you can only carry it's not just them. You have all these other guys who are running out of options. So they're gonna have to start figuring out their bench situation because there's just plain and simply there's too many guys who, if I sat down and actually had done all the extra work, I could tell you that they have to get rid of at least 3 guys probably because they have 28 guys who have to make the team next year, and you can only have 25 make it or something like that. Like, I could probably crouch the numbers.
can I give you a hot take that I think a lot of people are going to get upset about?
I think I already know what this is going to be because you and I have had this debate off air.
I think if it had to come down to one of these two, I think it's Daniel Sheeman, because for some reason, and maybe this is the right reason, Cleveland trusts Daniel Sheeman to play shortstop in a pinch, whereas they never did with Angel Martinez. Daniel Sheeman has the lower chase rate. He's got more pop in the bat. I think he's a better defender overall. I think if you're going to bring one of them back, I know Martinez is a switch hitter and he was better against lefties this year, but I think if you can't find room for both of them, I think it's Sheeman you bring back. And maybe, I know some people will be mad if you trade Angel Martinez for something and they're like, he's going to go somewhere else and be really good. Maybe. But this is the year you do it, by the way, because he's got one option year left. They didn't use an option on him this year. So he's got an option left. That makes him valuable to somebody else because he at least has the option and the versatility, and he's still only 23. Like, I know there's a lot of data out there that isn't so good on him, but like, there's still a chance that he's going to carry like a little bit of value in a trade. You know what I mean? Like as an add-on, or to clear a spot and get something back. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think Schneeman's the better player. I think Anel has more ceiling. The only thing is, I do feel like they kind of need more guys who can hit lefties than righties right now. But True. I would say there is also a situation where one of the guys who maybe I look ahead and talk about the guys who are definitely off, which is Lane Thomas, whose contract is up. Like if you bring him back, then maybe Angel doesn't have the value. And the other thing, I'll be honest too, is Schneeman's a much better defender across the board. His metrics look a lot stronger than Angel's. So there's also that side of it.
Yeah. And then, John Means. You have John Means in the maybe category. He didn't make a start at the end of the year, and that really complicates things. And maybe he didn't make a start at the end of the year because it was just things were coming down to the wire, and it was just too important to start a guy making his first MLB start in 2 years, coming off of Tommy John. So maybe that had more to do with it than what they really feel about him. I just feel like it's $6 million next year. That's too much depth to have. Like
fair enough. I'll move him up.
And if you do that too, like think about that. You pick up $6 million. I haven't looked at the free agent pitching market, but who are you going to sign on the free agent market for $6 million? And I originally was in the bubble. I originally had said like, I don't think picking up his options a guarantee because it didn't start. They've got all these pitchers, but now I'm thinking it's super cheap, and if they bring him back, that gives them maybe a little bit of flexibility to dangle an arm in a trade, as dangerous as that is. But I think the cost and the flexibility just gives you way too much ammo to bring him back.
Fair. I can see that, and he's been really good for his.
But Jeff, you don't listen to anybody. Previously. You never change your mind.
You're right. I never do. So I guess I'll put him back.
No, maybe
you can never have enough pitching, right? Plain and simply.
Yeah. We found that out the hard way. Remember Spencer Howard in 2024? That's going to be the Spencer Howard joke. Is going to be the new Alex Cobb joke. Is remember Spencer Howard pitched a game for the Guardians?
Alex Cobb never ended up throwing an inning this year, did he? Right?
He sure didn't. And I was talking to some Detroit people about that too, and we're like, "Hey, we have this joke on our show about Alex Cobb," and they're like, "Yeah, we do too, but only because it's very sad that we spent that money on him." I'm like, "Yeah, we think it's hilarious, and they don't think it's so funny." But the maybe options you also see Doug Nikhazy. I think that's a guarantee. I don't see why they wouldn't bring back a starter that's got options to ride the show.
Fair enough. So do you think I should put him in the must instead of the likely? I just feel
I would say likely. I would say likely.
I can see that. You can never have enough pitching. It's just it was a pretty bad year.
I also don't see how they're going to move on from Petey Halpin. Like, you need someone in AAA who you can call up to play the outfield. Like, also, isn't George Valera finally going to be out of option? No, I guess not, because he was never off the 40-man roster, or he was never optioned this year. He was off the 40 and then called up. So I think Valera will retain one option for next year. But Petey's got to play AAA, and
okay,
need somebody else there.
Defense is there. I'm always a fan of defense and speed. I just feel like he was more of a maybe just because they have so many outfielders and they have to.
Yeah. Now that the next three on your list for sure are guys that are 100% maybes, and I might even convince you to move them down the list. We'll talk about who is on the maybe but also no list. We'll tell you about Jeff's favorite category on the list, and we'll talk about how much flexibility the Guardians will have at the end of this exercise to add to the roster. Coming coming up on the rest of today is Locked On Guardians. Look, I know baseball season in Cleveland is over, and to be honest, we're supposed to talk about catching a baseball game live, the energy of the crowd. There is nothing like seeing your team in person. But you want to know what? There are other things to do. I used to be the guy that said there's nothing else besides baseball. Like I was the guy from Fever Pitch. The other sports don't exist, but other things do exist. And if you want to get tickets to those other things, Game Time is going to help you out with that, because with Game Time, you're not stuck in any queues. There's no weird login screens. There's no surprise fees, and you're getting all the fees included, so you know exactly what you're going to pay at checkout without any surprises. And the tickets are delivered on time, and you always get the best price backed by the Game Time guarantee. I continue to scour the Game Time app for tickets to events. My wife wants to go see Jonas Brothers for the 300th time in her life, and we're going to do that in November. But I'm going to use Game Time to find the best tickets that day of, because prices go down closer to the event. So Game Time is going to come through for us again when that concert comes up. So download the Game Time app, create your account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, that is promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Tap, swipe, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Maybe you are one of those people who is keeping up with baseball even though the Guardians season is over. If you want breakdowns on every game during the playoffs every single night, head over to Locked On MLB after you're done listening to Locked On Guardians and check out MLB Game Night. Our hosts are breaking down each game until a World Series champion is crowned. You're also going to get insights from all of the local experts on the Locked On Network. So none of this national TV broadcast stuff that you can't stand these guys because they're biased towards big markets. We have the big markets covered, but guess what? They're coming from a local angle. So you're going to get more insights, but you're also going to get insights from the Brewers. Our Brewers host, by the way, is one of the best hosts out there. He is awesome.
Chuck.
Love Pat. Chuck, yes, not Pat. Chuck, sorry. Chuck Freeman.
Yeah, he's had me on a few times. He's a good dude.
We love Chuck. So go check out Locked On MLB Game Night to hear insights on the Cubs and all that fun stuff. The Blue Jays. So we got the Blue Jays. We got you covered because there is a podcast for every team that you love on the Locked On Podcast Network. All right, so your next category is the maybes. I strongly believe, Jeff, that going into 2026, both John Kenzie Noel and Jonathan Rodriguez cannot be here. There could only be one, as you like to say. There can only be one. Well, and my God, if I have to, I know Jonathan Rodriguez hit the home run against Texas, and he did he hit a home run against the Tigers? Did that happen? No, he did. I think he had a hit or something.
Yeah, I think he only ended up with 2 home runs.
But you want to know what? If somebody else in right field makes that play in game 1, we're talking about Guardians Mariners right now, not Tigers Mariners. So
we think. I mean, Noel still also then makes his error, so maybe it goes Nexters and they lose it there.
But that was first base. I don't know. Either way,
those were full plays.
I cannot watch Jonathan Rodriguez play another inning of Major League Baseball. I would love to watch him in the Nippon League. So yeah, I have to send that guy to Jupiter. I can't watch Jonathan Rodriguez play baseball again.
Here's the one thing though we assume. Again, Noel's had options.
He is.
Rodriguez has options. I think that's a bigger separator than it because of how many of these guys. Like, I'm going to go through. It's like we have right now, not counting any of the guys talked about, we have 31 players that are going to be on this team. Petey Halpin has an option. Nick Casey, I think, still has an option. Martinez and Alamon have options. Valera will likely have an option, and I think that's about it. So we're talking about they are over how many guys you can have on a roster. Just and Espino, I'm sorry, but and then Walters will be hurt.
Well, Espino's going to get all his options back,
and Brito too, and I guess Chase. But still, we're talking about a team that already had about 23 guys already. So I think Noel is just impossible to keep in this roster. But then again, if they want to have some balance, but if the other side of it is they let Manzardo play every day. So if you're going to let Manzardo play every day and you're going to have Fry and you're going to have maybe Kafis out there, like you don't need both these guys. And I think there's a chance that they're both gone because I also have to be honest, we're sitting there at 31. We got some maybes here. We got some.
I would not be upset if they're both gone.
I know. But the thing is, if we're at 31, if we keep one of the maybes, if some of the no's get through, they still have to add like 6 guys to this roster, bare minimum. And we'll talk about that later this week.
Yeah,
you can make a case for 7 or 8, bare minimum of adding 6. And you can't just sit there and be like, okay, we're at 40. I mean, they'll probably end it at 40, but like, let's also be honest. At some point, at least one of the gone guys is back. There's going to be guys who move back in this roster. So you can't
possibly one or two.
Yeah. You can't, you need some small degree of roster fodder. And that could mean someone like Noel is on when they have to set rosters and then doesn't make it when someone else gets at it. It could mean someone like Ninkasi who, they could have a debate, but we'll get into that later. I think on the nose right now, I lean towards. I do lean to Noel off because he has to make the roster, and I think Rodriguez maybe makes it. Wouldn't make it for me. People get mad when so I'm going to clarify. I'm not saying I would have him. I'm saying there's a good chance with his option he stays.
Right.
That you have to discuss is probably some people are probably like, why haven't you mentioned him? That's Kobe Allard. Allard is going to make about $2 million in arbitration.
I can't see it.
That's a lot for your. It's not a lot, but it's an amount for your long man, and he's also only got one more year of team control. So it's the fact that you're getting him at 1 year at 1.9, if we're being fair.
And also, how much more juice can you squeeze out of that?
And if it crusted him to any degree in the postseason, I would have been willing to consider this. But they went out of there. They were doing the cardinal sins of what you should not do, rather than give Kobe Allard a chance. So if they they didn't believe in him to that degree, then I don't see it.
The arbitration guys, if you look at this, like okay, let's just do arbitration real quick. So we think they'll non-tender Kobe Allard. Hedges at 1.3. You have him as a no. I would not be surprised if Hedges comes back at 1.3.
It's because he just had the knee surgery. Like already had the arm surgery, and now it's a knee surgery. And
the knee surgery is not going to delay his 2026 season, though.
Like but it's going to affect his ability to like start getting back in the flow of things. You would have hoped, this offseason he'd start to amp up, and now he's not going to be able to. So
I would say he's a maybe. You have him as a no. I think he's a maybe.
I think he's a guy you cut and you try to bring back on a minor league contract, or you do. Haven't they done something in the past with like a minor league deal 1 year with the ability to like.
Well, like Anthony goes and
something like that. So
there is that. Yeah, there is that.
I mean, I'll put him in the maybes because I do believe in him as a pitcher if healthy. I'll adjust.
Healthy, yeah. Ben Lively, that's one for sure. I think Ben Lively will be back, but I don't think they're going to tender him a contract. His arbitration number is 2.7. I can't see the Cleveland paying him 2.7.
And last year they cut him, for people who don't remember, because he was 2.7 last year, and then they had him come back for 2.2. Like he was willing to sign because he had never made over $1 million in a single season until this past year. This is his first. I mean, not counting. I'm sure he did in Korea, but not counting his MLB years. So
Nolan Jones, $2 million. That's an easy one to cut bait with. We can find.
And he's got no options. So like we're talking about players of options.
He has not been lively. Will Brennan, $900K. He also had the core muscle surgery. Remember, he also had a hernia during his Tommy John rehab. I think Will Brennan. I forgot Will Brennan existed. Honestly, I was sad for me because I used to be president of the Will Brennan fan club. So that's a guy who's not coming back on the 40 man. Like he's I don't. Well, is he on the 40 man right now?
No, he's not. He's still in the 60 day. But
he's not going back to the 40. No. Yeah, so he's off that.
Same thing with Lively. Lively doesn't affect your numbers. Henches would.
Yeah.
If he
comes back. That's all your ARB guys, except for Kwan, who is an obvious. Yeah. We talked about that. So after that, you've got like Dom Nunez is on the 40. Zach Kent, Matt Crook, Will Wilson, all those guys can be DFA'd or whatever you want to do. I mean, maybe Kent sticks on a roster because I don't know what his option situation is, to be honest with you, but he could be the shuttle guy. They do like Dom Nunez, but again, you're not going to hold him on the 40 over the offseason. So
he's a classic re-sign and
go to AAA. So the three guys we know that are off the roster: Jakob Junis is a free agent, Austin Hedges is a free agent, Lane Thomas is a free agent, and honestly, I would not be shocked if all three come back. So if you want to add them to your list, like that puts you at 34 right there because you're at 31 from the must and the likelies.
Zach Kent is out of options, by the way.
He's gone. Yeah. Maybe he comes back on a minor league deal too, but who knows? So you're at 34 if you re-add those three guys after, because they're not going to do that till after till the winter meeting. So you don't have to add them right now. But I would take all three back in the right situation, starting with Junis and then Hedges, and then let's see what else develops in the offseason with Lane Thomas. But your favorite category, Jeff, is who the knows, because we have no idea what's going to happen with the closer who will not be named and Luis Ortiz. We have no idea.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Like I was telling Justin before the show, I was looking at like, you know, the number of guys in the NFL who are playing who got in trouble, and you know, it's happened in other sports. I don't know. Like I gotta be honest, like maybe this is the wrong point of view, and maybe this will get me in trouble, and I'll have to. But like I kind of want them to come back just because it's talent and it's a lot of talent, and
Agreed.
you know, you would probably, I would assume you would get some degree of, it'd be like a drug suspension. You'd get some degree of like those years back of control that had to go away. I don't know how that would work.
Maybe.
But if they have to sit out a year, a formal suspension, I think that would then kick their contracts a year down the road. And here's the thing. We see all across baseball all the time, terrible human beings still playing the game of baseball. People who have, you know,
And football.
And well, I'm just saying it, you know, yeah, in all sports, but just straight on baseball, you know, guys who've been accused of crimes, like, not that what they're doing is a crime too. I don't want to reduce it down. You know, they made terrible choices, but I wouldn't put them on the same level as someone who is like committed physical violence. And there are players in Major League Baseball with violence. So I am not, you know, they'd have to make amends to teammates and figure that out, but I would not be opposed to either of them coming back, you know, probably Ortiz as a reliever and then eventually trade asset because again, Major League Baseball doesn't care about your off the field. They care about how you perform. And if Class A were to have to sit out a year and then come back and is awesome again, yeah, Cleveland will be able to flip him for a crud ton of assets. So I still hold out that hope because it's hard for a team like this just to lose a Hall of Fame talent and not recoup. So I'm always going to hold out hope, makes your team better as long as we're not talking about like abusers and murderers and the like.
Yeah. So where does that leave the Guardians with roster spots, at least in terms of flexibility for the offseason? Well, we'll have to see who, you know, what the free agent list looks like. And we also have to consider who is likely to trade major leaguers because, you know, Jeff and I have talked about last offseason, but you have so few teams out there that are tearing things down. That'll be a future episode as well. But the way I see it after we talked through this today, I think there's room to add an outfielder. I think we know that. There's room to add an outfielder, whether that's Lane Thomas or somebody else. And that's, you know, hopefully jet setting Noel and Rodriguez, to be honest with you. If you move Martinez, you bring somebody else in, you also have room for that spot. And then I think there's always room for relievers. I think the only spot you don't add to this offseason is the rotation. I know that sounds crazy to say, but I think the only thing, maybe you go out and you sign what they always do. They always go out and sign, you know, pitchers for AAA depth that they try to rehab or whatever. So maybe you figure something out like that. But for the most part, like you're not really adding to the rotation. That's the only spot. I think you're adding like a couple of outfielders between AAA and the majors. I think you definitely got to go out and add at least one, if not two relievers. That includes Junis. I would say add Junis, and you have to go out and you have to add another reliever to the major league bullpen, by the way, not just like depth.
Yeah. And my whole view is we know they're scavengers, right? This is a team when you're second smallest market in baseball in size in terms of population, you have to be that way. So they're going to see what's available. They're going to wait and sit there and be scavengers and hopefully swoop. They should have a little money to spend. We'll discuss that, of course, throughout the offseason. And we'll keep our eyes open. We'll have those trade talk days. We'll have those times for free agent targets. And, of course, very soon we'll have that discussion about the minor leaguers you need to know for your Cleveland Guardians in the future.
That should be tomorrow. We'll talk 40-man roster decisions, or we might talk post-mortem interviews. The Guardians have the Guardians have postseason media availability, so we'll hear from Vogt and Antonetti and Chernoff and all those likes. So if anything comes out of that, we'll discuss that, and if not, we'll discuss the 40-man roster and minor leaguers you need to know.
We might end up doing both. Thank you all for joining us, and go Guardians, go.